Hey everyone, this is Cindy. This is an open door. It is Friday, February 7th, 2025, and we are in the hour that we have entitled Reality Check. And the intention of this hour, the purpose of this hour is to make ourselves available through for a direct experience through the teachings of Helen Hamilton as they are being expressed in the book Reality Check. Man, that was a lot of words I didn't know I was going to say. Pat has agreed to read for us in this hour. Thank you very much, Pat. I wonder if we're going to get more than 4 or 5 sentences. Who knows? And I also think we decided we were going to start with step 1 again, or are we starting with step 3? I don't remember. I have
I'm
step
pretty
3
sure we
highlighted.
said we would start with one again.
Okay, that's what I thought. But first, Helen, or Helen's team, published a 6-ish minute clip just 4 days ago, according to what it says in my YouTube account. And the title of the clip is something like, "Can we know peace by pushing away the current moment?" Something like that, which seems very valuable, at least to me. So we'll begin with Helen's clip and anything that arises in any of us to say after being with that, and then perhaps we'll begin reading. You never know.
So our egoic sense of self is kind of this mechanism that is constantly assessing this moment and comparing it to some future imaginary moment. And that future imaginary moment could be a minute from now, 10 hours, 10 years, 10 lifetimes from now, if we're talking about awakening. And we're never going to find peace by doing that. Peace can only come, and then eventually love and joy and even a deep bliss. It can only come by being present to what is here in this moment already. And not the sort of very quick glance at this moment the ego does and says, that isn't what I want. This isn't what I want. And I can't be happy until it is how I want it to be. So for me, my awakening, my spirituality, my practice all began to boil down to a very simple thing. How am I in this moment? How am I with this moment? How am I responding to and reacting to what is the shapes that are moving in this moment, the manifestation? Because this moment in itself, we don't really have a problem with. This moment now, if we just take this moment now, you don't really have a problem with it. You tend to have a problem with what is appearing inside it, the shapes that the forms are taking, whether that's thought forms, emotional forms, whatever way the body is appearing, if it's comfortable or uncomfortable, healthy or otherwise in pain, or whether it's just restless, or whether some external form is troubling you, something going on in your life. So we can make a huge evolutionary leap into peace when we begin to see how this moment treats the forms that are arising. How does it be with what is coming and going in this moment? Does it use all of this, the nowness of this moment, does it use all this manifestation as a means to an end? Is it looking to get something different and better than is here right now? Does it have that capacity? So our ego begins to soften and dissolve as we really begin to see that all we have to work with is this moment. And for me, it was revolutionary when I began to understand that pushing against what is happening, what has already manifested in this moment. For me, it was insanity, and yet I kept doing it. Pushing against what's already shown up, whether that's thoughts, emotions, the body, the way the body is, something going on in our relationships. Pushing against it, rejecting it, and expecting to feel peace is absolutely the definition of insanity when we look at it really. Can we ever feel an absence of conflict in this moment when we're pushing against what is? And as we begin to see that, it doesn't mean we have to kind of like how this moment is in the way that the manifestation is appearing. But we can take a huge evolutionary step when we begin to accept this is how it has already shown up. What I would like those shapes, those forms to move and change into might be something else than it is right now. But how it is right now is how it is right now, and no amount of pushing against that is going to make it different than it is already, how it's already taken shape, how it's already taken form. So we could say that formless is always moving into some kind of shape, some kind of manifestation. And it's like trying to, when the rain's falling out of the clouds and hitting the ground, it's like trying to get that rain to go back up into the cloud. It's never going to work. You cannot get those raindrops out of the ground and back up. And yet we're all doing this until we don't. Because of this one very well-believed idea that if I push against this moment, it's going to change into what I would like it to be. If this moment, if the shapes appearing in this moment are not how I want them to be, my thoughts, my emotions, how my body feels, how my relationships are, how my career's going, how healthy my bank account looks, how my relationship is with my family, whatever it's going on, if I push against it right now, how it's already shown up, then somehow magically it's going to turn into what I want it to be. So this idea that the more I resist this moment, the more successful I'm going to be at getting what I want. We can begin to see that this is utter nonsense, really, and we've all really bought into this, most especially perhaps with awakening. If I really push against and reject the fact that I don't feel at peace right now, it'll somehow change into peace. It's what mind, ego, separate sense of self says. And is that really working out for us? Is that really actually going to produce a lasting, stable peace? Not so much.
Okay. So the question is, is anyone inspired to speak?
Just so good, so good, so good. It is, it is, it is, it is, it is, it is.
And to add to that, acceptance, acceptance, acceptance.
I just love Helen. She's just so clear and it's such a huge help. I took a bunch of notes, but I love this one. We're all doing this until we don't. Yeah, and that's I need to do nothing. I need to stop doing that.
I will never be at peace unless I allow that in this moment there's an experience of pain and not try to pretend that there isn't. Whatever else is happening. In many, many ways, that's just been lighting up in my current experience of self. Just it was something in A Mind at Home with Itself that Ron and I were talking about yesterday with Byron Katie, and she was talking about how the sage or the Buddha is transparent, never ever changes, no matter who's in front of them. And I had to acknowledge that there is a sensor inside of Cindy that shifts the way she presents herself, depending on who's on the other side. And whether that is because there's a mind in here that says they won't get me, or this won't help them, or this won't help me because I know how they're going to respond if, all of those kind of statements, this censor. And there's no judgment here. It's just being able to accept in the present moment that there is something inside that is narrating and interpreting the moment, is something that Byron Katie indicated in the chapter we were looking at yesterday, that doesn't exist in the Buddha, which is so foreign, you know. The interpreter that's interpreting this extra layer that's interpreting the present moment instead of allowing it to simply exist, doesn't exist in the book. So that's what came up, you know, just recognizing that I could accept that that interpreter is here and active and perfectly okay. Like, I'm not judging the fact that she's here. I'm just kind of enjoying the fact that she's being seen. Is there more, or should we read? Right. Yeah. Share the screen. Oh, well, let's see. Don't resist the resistance. Just notice, see, and accept. Yes, Kate. All right. Press a couple buttons. Have I mentioned how happy I am to be here with you? We decided we were going to go back to step one, right?
Yep.
Take it away, Pat.
All right, I'll just start in the sentence just before that. Our journey of realizations usually goes something like this. Step 1, I am this body. Here we are convinced that we are a separate being that was born and will die. We are excluding everything else that exists in our definition of me and what I am. Step 2, I am not this body. Here we come to realize that we are not limited to the body. We are formless in our nature, and we identify as that formless, capital S, self or awareness. We feel strongly that we are not any form, any manifestation, and we dismiss anything transient, temporary, and changing as unreal. We can become very detached in this step from our mind, our body, and our life. Step 3, I am the formless, capital S, self, and all that arises out of it. In this step, we have come to see that anything which has arisen out of the self must be the self also. We now include all objects and forms in our definition of what we are. We may say or believe something like, quote, I am the formless awareness, and all that arises from it is me also. The important thing to note in this step is that although we may have included all form back into our self-definition, what we know ourselves to be, we are still seeing form and formless as different. The vital point to understand here is that I may still think of myself as two different things. We may say the manifest arises out of the unmanifest source, or that all of this creation arises out of the Creator. We could also believe in God versus Godhead. We must come to see that even this level of realization will cause us to suffer eventually, because it is still seeing two different things. We are still discriminating between, quote, real, which is the noumenon or formless self, and what we think of as, quote, unreal, which is the phenomena that we see coming and going. If we stop for a moment and directly experience what we are, we will find only one in that direct experience. Let me caution you again here against thinking about the self. Of course, you will have to use your mind to understand what is written here, but to check it against your own direct experience, you must actually look with your inner sight to see what you actually are.
Should we stop or finish this section?
Well, we have two more little paragraphs before step 4, so we could stop.
All right, go for it.
It is vitally important to confirm in your own experience and to prove to yourself that you cannot find two when you look. There's just you, only one. Confirm this over and over. There is a lot of literature and scripture written about steps 1, 2, and 3, but this book is written to clearly explain step 4. The final stage of realization has rarely been clearly explained, and all of this book is dedicated to that.
Anybody want to talk, or does anybody want to know, or should we just look and see what step 4 is first? I think Amy's telling us to go on. All right. There we go.
Okay. All right, so step 4. Step 4 of self-realization is when we simply do not know what we are. We have no idea at all what we are, and we have no interest in any self-definition. To define what we are would only be happening at the level of thought, and it would automatically exclude something from that definition. The very moment I know what I am, then I create the opposite in my experience, and I must experience it over and over. If I know I am formless, then I will keep having experiences of being a particular form. If I know I am a form, I will keep on having experiences of being formless, what the world calls death, birth, and life. The very moment I know I am both form and formless, I must keep having wild swings in my experience of being form and formless. I will experience the small, contracted state of being a human being only, and then massive expansion back to being infinite and everywhere. I will keep switching back to from one to the other, no, I think there's a typo, back to from one to the other in an endless cycle of expansion and contraction experiences. If I know that formlessness is real and forms are unreal, then I am still seeing two items there and will have to continue to experience in dualistic ways and suffer. I can only come to see that form and formless are the same thing and that both words are synonyms for reality. Form is the formlessness appearing to be a shape. Formlessness is the essence of all forms.
How about there?
Okay.
So I am inspired to describe an experience that, well, I don't really feel well. Are you surprised it has something to do with Emma? Emma's my greatest teacher. Like, I am so grateful for all the ways she shows up. And I had a great day. Like, I had a lot of really high moments yesterday, like being able to hold space for others. I had a number of conversations and then like blasting the music, and I made a great cake and was just doing all sorts of fun things. I was really enjoying myself. Um, and Emma called me, and I literally was just also in that space, and she let me know she was suspended from work for 3 days. And my opinion about what that means isn't nearly as important as I was able, even while I was on the phone, to watch this body respond as if, you know, the world was coming to an end, and I wasn't fine with it, to refer to the song I think we played yesterday. And I said all the right things. I'm really good at that. And I got off the phone, and it was a little after 8, and between 8 and about 12 or 12:30, the body was in pain. And I watched, like, it's interesting to be able to watch the mind tell stories. And even though I didn't believe the stories, um, it was still happening. Like, I even knew it was going to happen. And there was this sense, like, the energy system in the body went a little haywire. And I was able to watch that too. Extraordinarily uncomfortable. And so the feeling was dense enough that I couldn't hear guidance. I ended up listening to Paul Selig for a couple hours read from the book that I'm reading. And I may have dozed in and out a little bit, but then that like hurt too. It was very interesting. Because this system was struggling, suffering, and I wasn't. But I didn't like it. I didn't like it. I gotta admit, I wasn't having fun. Um, Eventually, number one, I took this sleep aid that has melatonin in it, but it was not, it was 4 hours later, and a little bit of Tylenol. Um, but the guidance at that point came through to do an exercise I think I introduced here some number of weeks ago. I laid in bed, and the instruction was do nothing but keep your attention on not even the whole hand, but just where the thumb touched my belly. I put my hand on my belly, and the instruction was to keep bringing my attention back to the interface between the thumb and the belly. I couldn't find it, by the way. And I could see how the system kept attempting to pull me out. And I got the instruction. I kept coming back and just being with the lack of definition between the thumb and the belly. And then I fell asleep and I woke up 5 hours later. And today there's a deeper, not that I need a deeper motivation, but the question that I brought to the dyad this morning was, how can I be present to other people in their suffering or their troubles, which is a big part of the way Cindy spends her day, right? And it's my joy and my blessing. How can I be in presence with others who are struggling or appear or present as having problems in the world without making it about me? That's the way the question came up, because I recognized last night that it had nothing to do with Emma suffering last night. It was all about how I responded to it. And the response that I received anyway, was to continue to do the work. And these are the words that come from the guides: to continue to do the work to be assumed by the divine self, which is who I am when I know who I am. So it's not about being less Cindy, it's about being Cindy without fear. So that's the experience that is happening here, that got lit up as I was listening to this section. Are we just going to keep reading, or does anybody want to share more about what's being offered here?
Well, you talked about fear, and lately I've had just a feeling of fear come up, and there's nothing that's in the present moment that would trigger it. It just rises up, and I can feel this. I'm going, that's interesting, and I don't resist it. I don't even try to identify why it would be there. I just go, and yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Michael Singer says if we really, really, really want to heal, we have to stop being so afraid of fear, pain.
Hmm.
It's so uncomfortable. It was so uncomfortable last night.
Yeah. I don't know if you know about this guy Yuval Noah Harari. He's a historian. He wrote an incredible book called *Sapiens*, and every time he talks, my brain just goes, "Oh my God, this guy is so clear and brilliant." And he's written a book about it's actually his *Sapiens* book written for children, and so he's explaining the history of humanity as in the so-called real world here, and he's talking about that we're not that far up out of the caves, and we've got these bodies that remember, how remember somehow, that you could be eaten at night while you're sleeping if you're not careful. If you don't have a fire at the mouth of the cave, and that's kind of how I feel that is. It's just something that part of this form experience that is there's no. It's actually a positive thing that in terms of that physical history.
Hi, Patricia.
Hi, Cindy. Hi, everybody. Good to be here. I struggle with fear a lot. And when I say struggle, it's like it's watching the fear come up and feeling it. And I don't have a name for it, but I have all of these in the moment. It's all in the future. what's going to happen. I have something called macular degeneration in my right eye, but it's dry, so it's a slower process. And here I am. I consider myself an artist in training. Somebody said, "Why don't you call yourself an artist?" I said, "No, I'm in training. That's what I believe." And the fear just rushed up, and oh my God, what am I going to do? Blah, 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 blah. This big storyline, and I was watching it. And all of a sudden, I said, well, you'll deal with it when it happens. And it was an assurance. It wasn't denial. It was acceptance. And it was something softened. And I could feel it soften in the body. And when the body got softened, this body called Patricia, when this body got softened, it's just macular degeneration. That's all it is. Why make more of it than it is? If it is, it is. So that was my experience last night. But fear I'm not saying I'm having a good time with it, but let's just say I'm very aware of it and working with it. And that's called self-inquiry, isn't it?
One word.
I mean, I get confused with some of this language. Self-inquiry, self-investigation, it's the same process, I'm assuming. Is that right?
Well, I am inspired to answer you the way Francis so very clearly held his line. He said in that podcast we listened to this week, right? He clearly stated, if you're interested and you desire self-realization, then your way will be found. And it is an investigation or an inquiry, but the words aren't that important. Your path will reveal itself to you, and your job is to hold the interest and let the flames increase.
Thank you. That is very helpful because yes, thank you. I don't need to say any more than that.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Rana Marin has her hand raised, or at least a coffee cup in a square that reads the word Rana. Oh, there she is.
Here I am.
Howdy.
Howdy. So I'd like to start by thanking Patricia, because listening to your voice just a moment ago in your process moved something in me that had been created or made this morning. I have a story. Can I have story time? Guess what it's about?
Yeah.
Kylie. So Kylie's been staying with her caregiver and she came home yesterday. And I was all prayed up and ready for it. I was even looking forward to it. I missed her. She had been over there for like 4 days. That's a long time. When she got home, she's very excited. And she broke out into a sweat. And her body has a very hard time regulating temperature. So to keep a long, drawn out story short, her dad took care of her last night and just kept saying to me, "Don't go in there. Don't worry about it. I've got her. She's fine." And so every time I got the urge to usurp that and go anyway, I paused and I sat and I allowed. I felt that urge of wanting to move, to find out what was really happening, because there was something that didn't trust that it was okay. But I decided to trust and not do anything in the world. So at 5 this morning, we have a monitor, a little baby monitor that I carry around all the time so she can talk like a walkie-talkie on it, But I could hear her this morning at 5. I Could hear her moving. And I prayed, I hit my knees, and I said, okay, we're going to start our day. And I'm going to be nice, Mommy. And I was. The power of God is miraculous. When I ask, I am given the courage and the ability to treat her with love and not as a broken person or any of it. There was no outer judgment and there was no inner judgment. We've been talking lately about how people can feel us criticizing them, even if we're not saying it, you know? So there was none of that either, right? So it went really well, but I mean, she was soaked from head to toe with sweat. Welcome back to caregiving, right? Please don't punch me in the neck by accident. We made it through. But I'm just watching the mind. Boy, does it want to be pissed off. It even wanted to be snippy with Grandma, who just wanted me to turn her TV on, right? But there was something that wanted to punish Grandma because I'm having such a hard morning. Who is the I? Who's having the hard morning? It's not me. And it's just so interesting to watch it. And I felt my energy getting lower and lower and lower. So I sat here with my camera off and I listened the best I could and asked for focused attention, to be with my friends. And then Patricia shared. And when she said something softened in me. It's those old tapes of how that ego used to react to Kylie having a Kylie moment. It's the old tape. So I'm not trying to resist it, and I'm open to any guidance that anybody has coming up for them. Grateful I'm not going to allow the ego to ruin my whole day. You know, she's okay. She's safe. She ate a good breakfast. Just according to Rana, she's uncomfortable. And according to Mama, she needs to be fixed or changed or something needs to be done to stop that. But I'm seeing it all and I'm not doing any of it. And I kind of feel like I'm holding my breath. So I'll end with that. Just, you know, reality check right here, right now. That's what's happening. So thank you for the realignment, Patricia.
Amy.
Just two quick things, Rana. I'm guided to suggest to you that you do something really nice for yourself today. You know, just do something, whatever it is that just feels like a warm bath for yourself. You know, be really super good to yourself. Right. The other thing is, I just listened to Peter Panagore. Is anybody familiar with Reverend Peter Panagore? He's a great guy. He just told of a near-death experience that he had. And he said, you know, sometimes the only thing that gets him through, that really anchors him, and is that he knows that this is a limited experience and that what is beyond this is absolutely phenomenally beautiful and lovely and wonderful. And there's nothing wrong in all of this, in saying this moment sucks right now and I don't like it. But I know in the future, I know that what I am actually, in truth, is more than this, even though I can't feel it now. That's not weak to do that. And it's not saying, well, I'm using time to get out of this moment. I'm using belief in some future moment in order to make myself feel better in this moment. It's not a weakness. So it's okay to do that. It's okay to do that. Thank you.
Sandra.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your integrity of this experience. Have you noticed that I'm addicted to the heart button? I can't
Better
stop.
than being addicted to Candy Crush.
I can't stop pushing it because I feel so in sync with everyone. Yeah. So, yeah, fear. So as we were reading this, and I missed last week, so I was a little behind, and they were these steps, and I thought, in the experience that I am having, and I remember having, these were not steps. These were more amorphous, like this sliding into this, sliding into that, sliding back a little, sliding. These were not steps. And then the one statement that I related to the most, which is going to bring me to fear, but was on the bottom of 34. I put a big heart by this one, and that was, well, there's two statements. The first statement is, if I know that formlessness is real and forms are unreal, then I'm still seeing two items there and will have to continue to experience in dualistic ways and suffer. And then the next statement is, I can only come to see that form and formless are the same thing, and that both words are synonymous for reality. So my mind at first is thinking that says something different than the Course in Miracles, but it doesn't really matter, because the experience I'm having while I am manifested into this form for this period of time, which is brief, is that it's all real. It all feels real. And I love that she said that, because I just like that she said that. No, everything feels real. The difference is knowing that this form and these experiences are not all there is. There's much more than that. And because I know that and have experienced that, then I can react differently to the happenings, as Rana and Patricia said. Now I have more access to, I don't want to say part, that separates things, but I have more access to that inner essence that tells me everything is fine. I used to be driven by fear. I was really driven by fear. I was raised in fear, and I was driven by fear. I was totally programmed to be afraid. Oh, lots of stuff. Even afraid to make you mad at me. But now in the experience, I realize I am safe. I am innocent. I love that I know I am innocent and I am safe. Somehow knowing that I am innocent helps me to feel safe. And it's all real and it's all happening. And there's no need to resist. Yesterday, when Barbie was talking about how she was feeling, I wanted so much to just jump out of this box into your box and hug her and say, it's all fine. You don't need to change it. There's nothing to change. With one little exception, the way I'm experiencing it changes. So all these books are wonderful. And I love that we take it from the esoteric and the intellectual right down to the day-by-day experience and how we deal with that and how we experience that. So I'm just going to keep pushing the heart button. Just put up with me. Because I love all of it.
This morning, I got a message from my sister, and they're going through their version of hell. And I responded, I'm really sorry. Really sorry that you're going through this. And she just said, thank you. And I was, it's hard to believe it's so early in the morning yet. I was in conversation with a friend this morning who was expressing a difficult evening. And I said to her, I am sorry. And she said, please don't be sorry. And because she's on this path, and I just, I got real quiet. She looked and she said, oh. And she was able to see in that moment how there was a belief in her where that the world was about everybody but her. And no one is supposed to, which is a belief that had been here that I'm letting go of consciously when I notice it. But she was able to see how pushing away somebody else's voice of empathy in the moment, just the simple I am sorry, was her defense mechanism against being present with that moment of pain. And as we were having that conversation, it came to me that that's actually the first line of the Ho'oponopono prayer. And I'm getting chills here, so this is for me, it may be for somebody else. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And so, in listening it to Rana, it was just this desire to say, I'm sorry that this is happening, and I'm sorry for this experience. And it didn't come from that saying I am sorry isn't here coming from this, oh, look what's happening to someone other than me. It's more from this beautiful Ho'oponopono prayer of recognizing that humanity is going through a growth spurt that is uncomfortable, to say the least. And when we allow ourselves to express how it's manifesting in each one of us in this way, and we could feel it and literally allow for the forgiveness of it by first acknowledging it's, as Amy put it, though for me it's a little bit more French, fuck, this hurts. Fuck, this sucks. This really fucking sucks. And I'm gonna feel how sucky it is in the same space of recognizing that that is flowing. And it's like, without Michael Singer was, as he speaks to me a lot in my head, and anybody who's been around me knows I used to throw his books out the window, and now I hear him in my head saying, "You got to stop just using the mind to justify the experience. Just allow the energy of the experience, whatever the story is, let it poke the bear and open up the wound, and then feel how fucking sucky it is. And it's like pushing the infection out of a wound, right? Oh, it's so ugly when you squeeze, when they like push it and allow all that stuff to come out. But if it doesn't come out, it just festers. But there's such growth and healing and beauty on the other end of it. So I'm sorry that you're going through that, Rana. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you.
I love you too, and I'm just so grateful that I can share here. Thank you for the space to do that and not have to tell a story, too much of a story.
Hey, Libby.
Hey, everybody. Good morning. And, one thing I've been feeling, some uncomfortableness and some fear as well. And one thing that, occurs to me when I practice compassion towards myself for having a human experience, because we are divine beings having a human experience. And it provides me an opportunity to possibly be more compassionate to others for having their human experience. That really doesn't make any sense to me, and it doesn't have to. It's not about getting into the story. It's just recognizing that we're all human beings on right now, and we're all doing the best we can. And sometimes it really does suck, and that's okay too, and to just be compassionate as I can while it's happening and overflow that to others for having their human experience instead of just wanting them to get out of my way and go away so that I'll feel better. So anyway, just wanted to share that this morning. Sure do love all.
Thank you, Libby. Richard, do you love me?
Love you all. Yeah, great sharing. What helps me is I say to myself at times like that, what Rona's going through, everything in the dream is temporary. So this too shall pass. So I just recognize that it'll be over when it's over, and it will be over as soon as I let it be over. So just let it be, and it will too pass. It always works. Always get back to sanity.
As you were sharing, I was addicted for a while to listening to Regina's early teachings. I spent a couple of months just listening to them all the time. And there's memories of doing that to and from Al-Anon meetings. So, but now we talk about the snippets, but there was something there. And she often talked about how valuable it was to allow the fear to just consume her. And she said that her practice slowed down, through watching movies and distracting and the occasional glass of wine or whatever. But you do what you do to stay balanced. But her early teachings, they're so valuable to me. Just recognizing the more we can allow ourselves to feel whatever is happening, it's part of the practice or part of the process. If it shows up, like we can't force it, but if it's here, let's hold it in a peaceful, open space and allow it to happen without telling ourselves we're wrong because it's happening. Amy.
I'm just moved to just go back to the book a little bit and her statement that form and formlessness are synonymous. And how do we practice that? I'd like to just put that out there. Like, how do we practice in being the formless and the form at the same time and not knowing what we are? So we're not form, we're not formless, and we don't know what we are. Kendall says allowing. Yes, and the other, I constantly think about the term forgiveness, which is definitely a course term, and I love the term forgiveness because even though it does imply separation because you're forgiving something, it also is like a little turnkey that, to use Rana and Patricia's terms this morning, bringing us back full circle, it softens. It just softens the experience. And forgiveness may be a prelude to allowing. I'm not sure. But so just wanted to open it up and see if we could, in 4 minutes, chat about that a little. Maybe it's our prelude to next week.
I saw Pat had unmuted and now she's actually raised her hand and Richard's hand's up. So
I didn't know I did that. Okay. I don't even know what I'm going to say. It was like, yeah, this here, when you said that, Amy, this was the next paragraph, which is step 4 then becomes, I have no idea what I am, what God is, what reality is. I am beyond any definition. I have no ability to determine, discriminate, or label, and I am totally happy. So that's it. That's in the chorus, almost in the same kind of words. I do not know the thing I am, what I'm doing, or where I'm going, or anything like that. When I read that, when I think that thought, it just feels so good. It feels so good. I'm relieved from the burden of defining this stuff. I don't need to define it. I couldn't. I mean, I can't. I want to have other people talk.
and it just, when I was in the midst of whatever was going on last night, the words, this is totally out of your control, Cindy. You had nothing to do with activating this. It feels like the same as but it was so useful to me to just remember that what was happening. I didn't cause it to happen. It wasn't my fault that it happened. I'm not guilty. Someone here said, remembering their innocence. I knew that this was just like being able to just say, and it was part of the conversation Rana and Diane were having yesterday, this acceptance that ultimately this is out of my control. Like there was nothing going on that I could say I did this, so that happened. It just happened. And that was so useful to allow the experience. And it feels like what Pat just said. And now I'm handing it over to Richard.
I believe the Course in Miracles says all fear experienced within the dream is a reflection of the original sin, fear, and guilt that we projected onto the world and made the world. So going back to the original sin of separating from source, the guilt we feel about that and the fear that God will punish us because we believe we separated and then chose to be separate is the original fear that comes up in all our experiences, whether it's family, whether it's politics, whether it's whatever. It's a reflection of the original fear of being punished for separating from our source. That's all I wanted to share.
Yeah, and that sounds like that was that piece of the Francis podcast that broke me open too, when he said 99% of the human population, worships the same God of separation and death. But truth is not a democracy, and so you don't have to do that worship. You can do the investigation and step out of it. Sandra.
I just have to respond to Amy. I love your question. And for me, it's living in a sense of awe and wonder and innocence. And living that way, knowing that everything that happens is more than okay. It's great. It's happening for me, as Nandego always says. And I know we're a little over time, but the other day I was washing the dishes. I don't know if I told you this. And all of a sudden, while I'm just living in the sense of awe and wonder, I'm looking at my hands and I go, wow, you know how a baby sometimes looks as their hand gets into their point of view and they're looking at the hand like it's not a part of them? I was like, these are magnificent tools. It's so cool that I'm in this form and I get to, I mean, look how they can do little tiny things, they can do big things. I was like, oh, and it's just, it was like being the form and the formless. It was like just awe and wonder in all the tiny little things. And to me, I don't have to figure it out. I just get to enjoy it. Just enjoy it all. Even enjoy what might appear to be not what we call not a good feeling, but they are. They are. Like Amy said, because then we get to unwrap the Christmas present again.
And Patricia.
So, I was thinking about forgiveness and allowing, Amy. And what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do first I acknowledge and allow it, and then I can forgive? Or does it come up and I forgive it before I allow? I mean, it's like this flow. Depends on what it is. I mean, for me anyway, that's what the Patricia body says.
I love that. Thank you. What is the someone else might remember this more than I do. First I see it, then I allow it. And if I can't allow it, I accept it. And if I can't accept it, I forgive it. Something like that, you
That's
know.
nice.
That's just a linear version, but I think your point is your question's great. I love that. Whatever works for you in the moment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank
All
you.
right. We have filled 63 minutes. So I'm gonna say I love us very much. And where the rubber meets the road is on Monday at 10:30 Eastern. And man, God must love us so very much to have brought us together. Or at least I'm feeling loved and grateful. With that, I am turning off the recorder.